Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dion and today I want to talk about Black dandyism and the Met Gala theme, super fine black tailoring. The Met Gala is next week and I want to do a bop or flop outfit review for the red carpet at the Met Gala. So I figured before we do a bop or flop that I would do a Met Gala theme sort of overlook of what they're talking about so we can better critique the looks on the red carpet. So if you like fashion and fashion commentary in general, then definitely make sure to subscribe to this channel because I post videos every Thursday. And with that, let's get into it. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's costume exhibition for 2025 is Super Fine, Tailoring Black Style.
Spring 2025 Costume Institute exhibition will explore the Black Dandy. So what is a Black Dandy? Fashion and dress have been used in a contest of power and aesthetics for Black people from the time of enslavement to today. And dandyism has often been used by individuals to manipulate the relationship between clothing, identity, and power. Style and its role in forming Black identities in the Atlantic diaspora is at the heart of the show.
Playwright Jeremy O. Harris wrote in an essay that to be a Black dandy is to, quote, dress as though you know you are loved and therefore have no use for shame. From this month's issue of Vogue magazine, the Met Gala issue, quote, drawing inspiration from Monica L. Miller's 2009 book, Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity, the exhibition is organized into 12 sections, each representing a characteristic that defines dandy style. Ownership, presence, distinction, disguise, freedom, champion, respectability, juke, defined in Zora Neale Hurston's characteristics of Negro expression as a space for dancing, drinking, and other leisure activities, heritage, beauty, cool, and cosmopolitanism. Coleman Domingo, Louis Hamilton, A$AP Rocky, Pharrell Williams, and Anna Wintour will co-chair the 2025 Met Gala, with LeBron James serving as an honorary chair. As announced in February, the Met Gala 2025 dress code is, quote, tailored for you, a nod to the exhibition's focus on menswear and suiting that's sure to bring out the sartorial creativity of this year's attendees. Much of this year's theme is also an ode to Andre Leon Talley, who was a huge powerhouse in the fashion industry and really epitomized Black dandyism in the modern era. There's even one of his suits exhibited in the exhibition. Now, I want to read some quotes from some of the chairmen on what this Met Gala really means to them and why it's important. From Pharrell Williams, quote, I want it to feel like the most epic night of power, a reflection of Black resiliency in a world that continues to be colonized. By which I mean policies and legislation that are nothing short of that. A$AP Rocky stated, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody celebrate Black excellence. When people celebrate a different culture or race, sometimes it gets done with intent, sometimes with ulterior motives. He describes the exhibition as, quote, genuine and very, very important. Coleman Domingo, probably one of the most exciting men's fashion figures on the red carpet today. He is an actor and I look forward to seeing him on the red carpet every year. He states on seeing the Black mannequins in the exhibit, quote, I'm a Black man who loves style, loves tailoring, and it struck me that I had never seen images like that of myself saying, I belong in these clothes. I always had to look for a vision outside myself. So now that we know it's a celebration of Black style through the lens of resiliency, we can see it makes a lot of sense for the current climate that we are in. I want to read some excerpts from one of my favorite books of all time, Dress Codes: How the Laws of Fashion Made History, by Richard Thompson Ford. He is a Morehouse alum, which is a HBCU, a historically Black university. And I read this book a few years ago. I referenced it in my In Defense of Uniforms videos. I made part 1 and part 2, and I referenced this book a lot in that video. This has everything from early sartorial laws about from the 1300s all the way to modern times and different laws and just how pivotal fashion is to laws and culture. So I highly recommend this book. It combines my two favorite interests, which are politics and fashion. So I want to begin with talking about the early stages of Black style. So coming towards emancipation around the mid 1700s, while there was still slavery, but we are starting to get semblances of a revolution. The South Carolina Negro Act of 1740 was a sumptuary law stating that whereas many of the slaves in this province wear clothes much above the condition of slaves, no owner or proprietor shall permit or suffer any Negro slave or other slave to have or wear any sort of garment or apparel whatsoever, finer, other, or of greater value than Negro cloth, duffels, coarse kerseys, osnabrigs, blue linen, check linen, or coarse garlicks, or calicos, checked cottons, or Scottish plaids. And all and every constable and other persons are hereby authorized, empowered, and required to seize and take away the same to his or their own use. This was a law to ensure that newly freed Black slaves and African Americans weren't dressing above their means. It was a way to control the social caste system with a visual marker. Often these laws would interchange Negro and slave, so even if you were a freed Black man or Black woman, these laws would still apply to you. Historian Jonathan Prude notes that 18th century America was, quote, a culture of sumptuary regulations, sensitive to plebeian overdressing. Slaves who dressed in excessive and costly apparel struck many whites as arrogant. Ford writes in this book, in short, African Americans defied racist dress codes and expectations, using attire to express identity, affinity, and self-respect. Free Blacks, as well as many slaves, avoided the rough, plain garments assigned to slaves by the Negro Acts. Prude notes that, quote, Blacks who were not slaves seemingly sought to underscore their non-chattel status by insistently avoiding the color white that was most intensively used in slave work garments. And I thought this was so interesting in the context of clean girl, minimalism, old money, all of that sort of very white fashion, that minimalist, modern white housing. We can associate that with white supremacy and fascism. There's a lot of fascist and white supremacist roots in minimalism and these sort of white parties, all white dressing. Obviously, white culture, white symbolizing purity, pure of heart, pure of spirit, pure of skin color. There's a really good TikToker who has like a whole series on like, is your fashion aesthetic fascist? And talks about sort of the minimalism, all white side of things. And I thought that was interesting because often in culture we associate Black fashion with lots of colors and patterns, and it wasn't until rereading this book that I realized we could trace that back to them not wanting to wear the same color they had to wear as slaves, which is sad but very interesting. Ford continues to write, for both the African Americans who wore refined clothing and those who resented them, dress had important social and political stakes. An elegantly dressed Black person was a direct challenge to a racist society because race itself was a social status determined largely by outward appearance. Just as women wore masculine clothing as a way of claiming the social privileges of men, elegantly dressed African Americans made a sartorial statement that they deserved and would insist on the esteem and respect that their attire symbolized. At the same time, personal investment in refined attire went beyond a social protest. Being well-dressed brought a sense of personal satisfaction and psychological comfort. The political was also personal. This combination of political statement and self-assertion became a potent and enduring, if often overlooked, part of history of the social transformation in the 20th century. And I feel this really goes back to what Pharrell Williams was saying about the colonization of Black culture and Black excellency, Black fashion being a cornerstone of resistance and specifically the civil rights movement in the United States. And throughout history in the United States, we see this tug of war between Sunday best activism and radical activism. This sort of, we should look as respectable as possible to try and fit in and not stand out in a white supremacist society, or the total rejection of the white supremacist society. Morehouse College sociologist E. Franklin Fraser wrote in 1955, The Black Bourgeoisie. He stated that the black bourgeoisie had created a world of make-believe, centered around the activities of those persons who constitute its, quote, society. For Fraser, the social rituals of the black elite were a pathetic imitation of the grander rituals of white society, rituals from which blacks were, of course, excluded. Indeed, for Fraser, almost every aspect of the culture of the black bourgeoisie was motivated by their deep feelings of inferiority to whites and their desperate, unrealized desires to separate themselves from poor black people. He states, quote, "Since the black bourgeoisie live largely in a world of make-believe, the masks which they wear to play their sorry roles conceal the feelings of inferiority and insecurity and the frustrations that haunt their inner lives. Despite their attempt to escape from the real identification with the masses of Negroes, they can not escape any more than their less favored kinsmen. They have developed a self-hatred, revealed in the pathological struggle for status and craving recognition in a white world. Their sham society leaves them with a feeling of emptiness and futility, which causes them to constantly seek and escape in new delusions." That is quite a roast. I'm not sure I ever particularly agree with that. I think from his perspective in 1955, there is this sort of like, nothing will ever be good enough for them. Why are we even trying? Why are we even bothering? And there's certainly a lot of weight and merit to that point. And we continue to see this type of rhetoric today with people online calling African Americans Oreos or trying to be white when they participate in stereotypically white aesthetics or white activities, which isn't fair to assume that every decision a black person makes is to impress white society, or that if they enjoy things like croquet and horseback riding and wearing linen, then they must be trying to be white. I don't love that rhetoric, and I feel like what Fraser wrote for the black bourgeoisie kind of continues to happen nowadays. However, I think the key word is bourgeoisie. He's talking about the upper class African Americans who are trying to distinguish themselves from slaves or indentured servants or people who are on sharecroppers. And Fraser's trying to say, Mama, they can't tell the difference between you and me from the slaves to you. So why are you trying to fit in? We're all still African Americans in this white society. I understand his point from a class struggle point where there should be class solidarity among African Americans because your richness isn't going to protect you from white supremacy. And at the same time, I think this is a bit hypocritical because we have seen that Sunday best activism has played an integral role in the civil rights movement. Ford writes, quote, "Respectable appearance was a mandatory part of the civil rights struggle. Professor Anthony Pinn, an expert on the history of the Black church and the struggle for racial justice in the United States, describes the importance of attire in the civil rights movement. Quote, although there was no formal dress code, civil rights activists wore their best as a way of indicating their seriousness and importance. It forced people to move beyond the stereotype of blacks and black bodies. What they wore had a deep meaning in the political realm." The point of Martin Luther King and so many other Sunday best activists' way of dressing was to depict this stark difference between progress and racism. The picture of progress are these men and women in suits and fascinating and skirts and heels and pantyhose and ties. And the faces of racism were these rednecks in their work clothes, in their overalls, in their sneakers. That's what made so many of those 1960s civil rights images powerful, because it depicted the barbarianism of racism contrasting the civility of progress. Damn, I ate with that one. I just came up with that at the top of my head. Oof! And of course, there was the other side of things. Malcolm X pushed for the natural hair movement, Back to Africa movement, and a celebration of distinctly black culture, not its contingency to white culture. In 1965, Malcolm X said in a speech, quote, "When you teach a man to hate the lips that God gave him, the shape of the nose that God gave him, the texture of the hair that God gave him, the color of the skin that God gave him, you've committed the worst crime that a race of people can commit." The Black is Beautiful ideal inspired radical changes in style, fashion, and grooming for millions of people. Black men and women respected the quote respectable fashions of white mainstream and the mainstream civil rights movement. Flashing forward to the 2000s, we're still having this debate. Is it better to be respectable or is it better to be distinctly Black and African American? Only this time we're trading the hair debate for sagging pants. On August 7, 2011, Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter addressed a predominantly Black audience at the Mount Carmel Baptist Church in the aftermath of a riot. He lamented that the rioters had, quote, made shame on our race and insisted, quote, if you want us to respect you, if you want folk to stop following you around stores, if you want somebody to offer you a job, then stop acting like idiots and fools. Take those doggone hoodies down. Pull your pants up. Buy a belt, because no one wants to see your underwear or the crack of your butt. Anti-sagging laws spread across the country from 2006 through 2016 until the ACLU got involved. Much of these laws came from the tragic event that happened in 2012. In my great state of Florida, my home state of Florida, Trayvon Martin was a young African American who was killed for wearing a hoodie and buying Skittles and an Arizona iced tea while being Black. That's the reason why he got killed, plain and simple. He wasn't stealing. He was a young boy, I believe he was 14 at the time, and George Zimmerman, a racist bastard, decided that was enough of a threat to shoot and kill this child. Geraldo Rivera offered helpful parenting advice on Fox and Friends, saying, quote, I think the hoodie is as much responsible for Trayvon Martin's death as George Zimmerman was. Rivera continues to dig his nasty little heels in on this point, stating, quote, every time you see someone sticking up a 7-Eleven, the kid's wearing a hoodie. Every time you see a mugging on surveillance camera or they get the old lady in the alcove, it's a kid wearing a hoodie. You have to recognize that this whole styling yourself as a gangsta, people are going to perceive you as a menace. Trayvon Martin was an innocent kid, but I bet you money, if he didn't have that hoodie on, that nutty neighborhood watch guy wouldn't have responded in that violent and aggressive way. Yeah, guys, if you just don't wear hoodies, which is a very common garment in American culture and Western culture in general, then hopefully, probably, you won't get shot by a racist bastard. Ugh. And that's why I do get frustrated when there's this discourse online about it's not that deep. It's just hair. It's just a bonnet. They're just clothes. They're just grills. When laws around these very same things have never affected you, it is that deep. It's always been that deep. People have gone to wars over dye and fabrics. Rulers since the beginning of time have been making sumptuary laws, laws against fashion. You can say, well, oh, not today. We don't live like that anymore. But sumptuary laws are still happening with sagging pants and blaming hoodies for violent maniacs. If a 14-year-old boy can get shot simply because he was wearing a hoodie while Black, then it is that serious. Then it's not just clothing. It's never been just clothing. To say it's just clothing is historically inaccurate. There are reams of books out there that say the contrary. Clothes can mean life or death, freedom or jail. Clothes go hand in hand with resistance and rebellion. And that is why I'm so excited for this year's Met Gala, and I really hope people don't disappoint and they really take it as a moment to reflect on all the people who fought via their clothes to have civil rights and have basic human rights in the United States while being Black. And we're still fighting for that today. So I'm excited for this year's Met Gala. I hope people don't mess it up. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a little reading heavy, but I think this is really interesting. And I think more than ever this year is something we really need to understand the theme and the importance of the theme and why there's a whole institute around Black tailoring, because it's not just clothes, it's rebellion, it's resistance, it's revolution. And I think that's really beautiful. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed and comment down below what else you'd like to see from me. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram if you want to see more from me, and subscribe to this channel because I post videos every Thursday. And with that, have a happy, happy day. Bye.